protected them, but he feels unworthy of it, so he wants her to give it to someone else. Sari learns about this, and she wonders why Jorman returned it. Lanto thinks it's because Jorman no longer needs it, and Amit thinks he's right, but Sari can't accept this, so she makes her way to Jorman. She asks him why he returned it, but Jorman tells her that he can't answer the question. At that moment, Lanto appears, introducing himself as the captain of the Queen's Guard and challenging him to a duel. Lanto wants Jorman to answer Sari's question if he wins, saying he's doing it out of loyalty. The king tells Jorman to accept the challenge, because he wants to see Lanto fight, so Jorman accepts it. As the fight begins, Sari asks the king why he wants them to fight, and the king reveals that he wants to confirm something. Lanto lunges at Jorman, who blocks his attack, kicking him away, and Jorman wins the match. But the king realizes that something's wrong, telling Sari that Jorman is injured. Amit learns about this, so she approaches Jorman, looking at his wound, and giving him an item that will help him recover. Amit thinks this must be the reason why he returned the amulet, so she starts crying, thinking her amulet failed him. Jorman confirms this, saying he didn't want to make her sad, and Amit realizes that Jorman was thinking about her when he returned the amulet, so she tells him that the amulet was the most she could do for him. She knows that he's always risking his life in battle, so she wants him to keep the amulet. Meanwhile, we see Ilya walking through the woods, where he sees mounted beasts holding onto a child. He cuts one of them, causing the child to fall to the ground, as the beasts escape. Ilya checks up on the child, but when he finds that the child is a beast, he points his sword at it, as the child thanks Ilya for saving him. The child introduces himself as Malo, and Ilya sheathes his sword, saying killing a child is a waste of time. He tells Malo to go home, but he doesn't know the way, so Ilya leads him to the border. As they walk, Malo suddenly disappears, and Ilya thinks he got kidnapped again, but he realizes that Malo is just playing around, wanting to play with the flowers. Ilya asks him why the beasts kidnapped him, so Malo tells him about the kids getting kidnapped and sold to humans, who treat them as playthings. Ilya realizes that the beasts he encountered work for humans, and he remembers his first encounter with beasts, making him want to throw up. Malo notices this, so he approaches Ilya, asking him if he's hurt, but he pushes Malo away. Malo reaches out his hand, saying he's trying to rub Ilya without touching him, because his mother does that for him when he gets hurt. An arrow almost hits Malo, as two humans appear, saying the beasts did a terrible job. They reveal that they are working for a noble, and that Malo is their target. They take Malo, as they recognize Ilya as the beast hunter, wondering if he's also after Malo. Ilya says he doesn't care what happens to the child, but he hears Malo screaming for help, and he remembers when his sister was eaten by a beast. So Ilya suddenly stops them, telling them that he hates people who toy with the lives of others. He pulls out his weapon and charges at one of them, telling Malo to run, but he notices that Ilya is being targeted by the archer, so he gets in the way, causing the archer to miss, because he needs to take Malo alive. Ilya breaks their weapons, telling them to leave if they value their lives, and the men run away. Ilya thinks that Malo will kill humans once he grows up, but he remembers how Sari told him that not all beasts are evil, so he starts to believe that beasts are just like humans. Ilya thanks Malo for watching his back, and they reach the border, where he leaves Malo, bidding him farewell. We see Sari and the king on a ship, as the king reveals that the anti-monarchist groups are no longer active. This was discussed during their recent meeting, and the officials thought this was great news, but Anubis thinks the groups are working together. The king tells Sari to rest easy, because she has no particular duties for their next task. Sari wonders what she should do during her free time, wanting to be a good queen, and the king advises her to follow her heart. At the royal palace, Anubis receives an urgent report that their territory is under attack, so he orders a servant to inform the king with a messenger beast. The king receives the message, and he decides to return to Osmargo, but Sari knows that their current task is also important, so she offers to fill in for him. The king refuses to let her go alone, but Sari tells him that she is just following her heart, saying she wants to help him. The king reluctantly gives her permission, but he tells her not to endanger herself. He places a charm on Sari's ring, and he flies back to Osmargo. A naval patrol encounters an illegal vessel, so they order it to stop, but as they approach it, a beast named Fenrir falls from the sky, killing the patrolman. The beast in the illegal vessel, Nir, joins him in the ship, and we learn that Fenrir was expecting Nir to join him. They ride a flying beast together, as Fenrir thinks about storming the royal palace, wanting to kill the king. They see the royal ship, so they attack it, killing the people aboard. One of the soldiers asks who he is, and Fenrir says he's the new king of the beasts. He reveals that his minions are currently invading Osmargo's territories, saying he will take the throne after he kills the king. The soldiers charge at them, but Nir instantly kills them with flying swords. Fenrir inquires about the highest-ranking individual on the ship, but the soldiers remain silent, so he thinks about executing all of them. However, Sari suddenly approaches him, grabbing his attention. In the royal palace, the king learns that 2 of their territories are under attack, so the king thinks about dividing his forces to deal with them, but Anubis suggests keeping the main force in the capital in case of a sneak attack, as he volunteers to lead a cavalry company to deal with the rebels. Back on the ship, Sari introduces herself as the acting queen of Osmargo, telling Fenrir to take her and spare everyone else. Fenrir thinks she's worthless because she's human, but Sari tells him that the king loves her, saying her appearance doesn't matter. Fenrir thinks she's lying, but Nir tells him that Sari had guards protecting her in Magia, so Fenrir decides to take Sari as his sacrifice. Lanto suddenly stops them, as he lunges at them, dodging Nir's flying sword. However, it turns around, and Lanto learns that Nir can use magic to control his swords. Lanto ends up getting stabbed, and Nir is about to finish him off, but Sari stops him, reminding them that she will only go with them if they don't hurt others. Fenrir orders Nir to spare Lanto, who wants to die for Sari, but she orders him to return to the palace and obey the king. She orders Bennu to heal the others, and she tells her watchers to deliver a message to the king before she leaves with Fenrir. The civilians learn about the invasion, so they gather at the palace gates in a state of panic. Klops rides a messenger beast to return to the palace, and he informs them about the situation. The king wants to save Sari, but Anubis stops him, telling him that he needs to stay in the palace, as he suggests sending a search party. But the king knows that Fenrir has a grudge against him, so he doesn't know what Fenrir will do to Sari. Anubis tells the king to kill him if he insists on going, because his actions are dangerous for the kingdom and he doesn't want to serve another king. The king calms down and returns to his throne. Klops delivers Sari's message, telling the king not to rescue her, and the king realizes that Sari wants him to defend the people. The king addresses the civilians, confirming that an invasion is taking place, but he tells them not to panic, as he claims he will protect them. He thinks about Fenrir, planning to track him down before he enters the palace, and he is prepared to fight to the death in order to win Sari back and protect his kingdom. The king receives a report, and he learns that the invaders are actually the anti-monarchists that have grouped up, and they are revealed to serve Fenrir. Meanwhile, we see Lanto as he follows after Bennu to look for Sari, but Bennu notes that he can no longer sense her, so she must be in a place with a barrier around it. We see Sari at Fenrir's base, and she asks him why he wants to be king. Fenrir reveals he was the prince of one of Osmargo's vassal states. He was considered a failure compared to his brothers, but he gets a chance to fight against the prince and prove his worth. He prepares to attack with blue flames, but the prince easily overpowers him in an instant. The prince claims he doesn't like fighting, saying they should be friends, but Fenrir thinks he's being mocked. He gets one of his ears cut off, and gets stripped of his title and gets cast away. Sari thinks he must have a grudge against the king, but Fenrir says it was a fair fight, but he wants a rematch so he can regain his pride, and he plans to return beasts to their natural order, where the strong stand at the top, so he even wants to tear down the border and take over the humans. Sari thinks that if he can only feel strong by hurting others, it's because he is weak, and she says he has no chance against the king. Fenrir gets pissed off, unleashing his flames. Sari is protected by her ring, but she ends up passing out, and Fenrir becomes even more interested, seeing she has the king's protection. We see Anubis as he arrives in the city of Khotan to deal with some of the invaders, but he suddenly comes across Nir. Nir recognizes his value and tries to convince him to change sides, saying they share the same ancestors, so he should serve a wolf king instead of a beast, but Anubis refuses, saying he chose the king that he serves, so Nir ends up stabbing him instead. Meanwhile, Fenrir offers Sari all kinds of food, and even jewelry to try to win her over, but she turns it all down. Fenrir wonders what the king is giving her, and she says it's his heart. Fenrir wishes she could be more like Nir, calling him his lovable slave, and we flash back to when Nier was just a pup. He gets whipped for stealing food, but Fenrir ends up taking him in on a whim. Fenrir is happy to have his first servant, giving him his name, and he says they are now together forever. Nier doesn't want to kill for no reason, and he gives Anubis another chance, but Anubis still refuses. Nier is about to finish him off, but Jormungand suddenly arrives. He fights off Nier's swords, and Anubis wonders why he's there, because he should be protecting the king, but he says that the king sent him, wanting to protect his friend. Jormungand narrowly dodges the blades and he rushes at Nier. The blades are about to stab him from behind, but he manages to slash Nier first. Nier retreats on his flying beast, saying he can't afford to die yet, and Anubis thinks they'll be able to find Fenrir's base if they follow him. We see Lanto has managed to find the base, but as he looks for Sari, Fenrir suddenly appears. Sari tries to get free, but Sai and Benyu manage to find her. Benyu sets her free, and he tells her their plan is to get away while their decoy distracts Fenrir, but Sari demands to go back, not wanting to let Lanto die. Lanto is no match for Fenrir, but he claims he is her guard captain, so he's willing to die for her. Sari suddenly appears, dragging him away, and she refuses to let him die. Sari claims that guards aren't there to die for their masters, and she wants him to be there when she becomes a true queen. Benyu makes it through the barrier, and Lanto catches them as they fall, but he ends up collapsing from the impact. Sai sends a message to Klops, and he tells the king that Fenrir's base has been located. Sari carries Lanto away, but Fenrir catches up to them. He wonders what she can do, telling her to submit to him, but Lanto suddenly stabs his leg, as he jumps away with Sari. Fenrir gets pissed off, jumping after them, but they are saved by Gwibber, and the king makes his appearance. Fenrir gets excited to have his rematch, and the king prepares to take him on. Anubis and Jormungand are rushing there as well, but Nier gets in their way, telling them not to interrupt the fight, saying he will stop them by any means necessary, and Jormungand knows there's nothing they could do anyway. The king unleashes his power, clashing against Fenrir, but it ends with both parties taking some damage. Fenrir wonders if that's all he's got, as he goes further beyond, unleashing a huge blast that levels the area. The king is brought to his knees, and Fenrir knows he isn't at full strength because he put his power into Sari's ring. Fenrir charges up the rest of his power, unleashing another explosion, but the king is unarmed. The king wonders what he's doing, and Fenrir says he doesn't want to win because he had an advantage, saying they are now on equal footing, and he prepares to settle things as primal beasts. They start fighting with their claws, tearing each other apart. Fenrir bites the king's head, but the king jumps up and slams him down. The king bites down on his neck, and Jormungand thinks it's over, but Fenrir manages to push him away. Fenrir bleeds profusely, but he refuses to give up. The king can see his determination, and he thinks about himself, about how he curses his own existence and is merely clinging to the throne. He doubts his resolve, and Fenrir lands an attack on him. The king falls to the ground as Fenrir celebrates, and the king feels he is out of strength, but Sari suddenly calls out his name, Leonhard, and he is reminded that it means brave-hearted. He manages to get back up, letting out a ferocious roar, and Fenrir wonders how he can still stand, but he realizes it's because of Sari. Nier can sense Fenrir is afraid, and he thinks back to when Fenrir had his ear cut off. Nier brings him some water, but Fenrir smashes it, saying he's now just a stray dog. Nier prepares to cut his own ear off, but Fenrir stops him, wondering what he's doing. Nier says he wanted to give him his own ear, begging Fenrir to let him stay by his side, because he was the one who gave him a place to belong. Fenrir declares that one day, he will reclaim his pride and become king. Nier reminds him of his pride, and he clashes with the king once more. They both refuse to lose, but in the end, the king is victorious. Sari jumps into the king's arms, and he tells her it's all over, but she tells him not to ever worry her like that again. The king falls from exhaustion, but Fenrir gets back up once again. Sari tries to stop the king from fighting, but he is determined to protect his people and preserve the future of Osmargo. As he brings out his claws to finish off Fenrir, Nier suddenly stabs Fenrir in the back, saying his mission and reason to live is complete. Nier escapes with Fenrir's body, while saying something to the king, who collapses from exhaustion as everyone rushes to his aid. They rush back to the palace, where Anubis gathers all the priests to tend to the king. Sari watches unworried, as they take him away, while Amit comforts her, and Nir is named a wanted man throughout the kingdom. A few days later, Jorman trains with Lanto, and he notes how Lanto's outlook has changed. Lanto says it was thanks to Sari who helped him realize his role, and Jorman acknowledges him as the captain of the Queen's Guard, hoping to spar again when he gets better. Sari goes to visit the king, who she finds is back in his human form due to his weakened state. She tells him how Anubis has warned everyone to stay alert in case Nir tries to take revenge, but the king doubts they will ever see him again. Sari asks him what they talked about when Nir left, and the king reveals that he asked Nir if he hated him for striking down his lord. But Nir thinks that the fight was Fenrir's dream and his curse, so he thanked the king for freeing his master. We see Nir with Fenrir's body on a tall rock, and we learn that Fenrir ordered Nir to take his life if he was defeated. Nir reminisces about his time with Fenrir, thinking about how he was his pride and reason for living, so he jumps off to continue being with him. Meanwhile, we see Set searching the Forbidden Archives, looking for something that will help him overthrow the king. Anubis reports to the king, informing him there were no disturbances found in the kingdom, and that everyone in the palace is preparing for a triumphal procession ceremony that will happen in 2 days to celebrate his victory against Fenrir. Anubis advises him not to keep Sari around during this ceremony, as the citizens might disapprove if they learned that the king was nearly killed trying to save a human. Sari and Amit enjoy desserts that Amit baked to celebrate the king's recovery, while Lanto trains by the statue. Amit notices that Sari's ring is missing, and she tells her that it broke during the battle, which makes Amit sad as she knows it was a gift from the king. Lanto comes in, saying that Sari will receive much finer gifts once she is the queen for real, but Amit explains that any small gift from a beloved is special. They encourage Sari to ask the king to give her another gift as a replacement for the ring. Later at night, Sari asks him about the ring, and the king tells her she will no longer need one since she has built up a tolerance to the miasma. Sari asks him if he remembers what she said to him when he gifted her the ring, thinking he has forgotten. The king instead tells her he wants to show her something, and they both ride over to a rock, where the king uses his magic to reveal a tree. He takes her inside to a clear blue spring, and explains that the ambrosia he used in her ring only takes seed here, which is why the spring is untainted by any miasma. The king explains how the skies in Osmargo used to be a clear blue before the miasma spread across the land, and tells her that only high-ranking individuals and priests are allowed to enter the area. Sari wonders if she should be there, and the king tells her he always planned to bring her here, since the spring's clear blue water reminds him of her eyes. He asks her to show her left hand, and puts a new ring on it since Sari had told him it holds a special meaning in the human world. Sari is happy that he remembered her words, but the king tells her his gift isn't complete. He makes her step aside, and uses his magic to empower the ring with the clear spring water. The king tells Sari that the last ring was only a tool to keep her safe, while her new ring is proof that they will never be apart. The two embrace and the king asks her to stand beside him at the ceremony as his lawful queen-to-be. But Sari declines his request, saying that it will cause discomfort and uproar among the people. The king insists that he will silence anyone who speaks against them, but Sari tells him to not disregard the voices of the people. She thanks him for his offer and promises to become a queen worthy of him. At the ceremony, Sari watches happily as the king is cheered on by his people. At night, the king tries to comfort Sari as a thunderstorm brews outside. Sari asks him to tell her a story. He starts telling her about his mother, who he thought was the late queen, who died around the time he was born. As a kid, the king never knew his mother, and always wondered where he came from, and whether his father, who loathed other species, even loved his mother. He would think about whether his true mother loved him or not, and if she even wished to give birth to him at all. Sari thanks him for telling her about himself, comparing his parents to her estranged ones. She says that even if no one wanted them to be born, it doesn't matter since they are already here, and now have the chance to desire and be desired, which is more important. The king considers her words, and agrees that the past doesn't matter as much as the present and the future. He tells Sari that he plans to abolish the sacrifices and develop good relations with Joanna. He believes that newer generations will welcome the idea of having good relations with humans, but sending beasts as emissaries would be risky since humans would attack them, so Sari volunteers to be his emissary since she is a human. The king proposes this idea to his council, which is met with opposition. Lanto cuts in, saying that the younger beasts haven't seen enough humans to hate them, and that he will accompany Sari to the human realm as her queen's guard. They go outside, and the king informs her that Anubis wishes to speak with her privately. Anubis asks her if she believes they can forge relations with humans, but gets frustrated at her attitude. Sari points out that if someone like Anubis could learn to hate her as a person rather than as a human, then others could do it too. She tells him she will do anything if it helps the king, and Anubis agrees to their proposal after seeing her dedication. She happily informs the king, who says he will send her queen's guard with her to protect her. She protests against the idea since it defeats the purpose, but Bennu jumps in, saying he will accompany her since he is neither a beast nor a human, and the king agrees. The next day, Sari prepares to leave for the human realm, while Amit and Lanto wish for her safety. Lanto notices that the king isn't present to wish her farewell, but Sari assures him that they already said their goodbyes. Meanwhile, Set is determined to find the secret behind the king's birth, since exposing it will help him achieve his goals. Sari arrives in Mascavana, the biggest kingdom in Joanna, where a peddler tries to sell a shawl to her. But the man goes away when Ocelot, the acting commander of the kingdom's knights, confronts him. He introduces himself to Sari, and tries to guide her to the churches, assuming she's a pilgrim. Sari informs him that she wishes for an audience with the king, and Ocelot tells her he will hear her out. She innocently tells him about her mission and gets arrested immediately, but she hopes that Ocelot will deliver her letter to the king once he finds out it's real. At night, Ocelot comes to inform Sari that they have confirmed her identity as the most recent sacrifice, which proves that she traveled from the beast realm, but they can't deliver the letter to the king since its contents are in beast script. He tells her of a woman who studies beast script independently, who could translate it. Sari agrees to get her to confirm the contents of her letter, and Ocelot promises to deliver the letter to the king if she succeeds. Sari travels to where the woman lives, and learns that the locals call her the Witch of Shed-Eye. They lead Sari to her house, where she is attacked by a woman who looks like the king in his human form. Bennu saves her, and the woman asks her why she is here. Sari explains her situation to the woman, and asks her for help, but the woman refuses, saying she wants nothing to do with beasts. She tells Sari to go away, and threatens to kill her if she bothers her again. Inside her house, we see that the woman is confused by Sari's words. Sari camps outside her house, determined to get answers out of the woman and to find out why she looks a lot like the king. The next morning, Sari greets her again and follows her around, much to her annoyance. Sari doesn't give up, and approaches her again when she's watering flowers, which Sari recognizes as Edelweiss. The woman dismisses her, asking her why she cares about a witch growing flowers. It suddenly starts raining, and two men approach the field to stomp on the flowers. Sari sees them and tells them to stop, but they insist that the flowers are poison that the witch uses to kill villagers. Sari tells them that the flowers are not poisonous, but the men tell her that the witch's blood is cursed and continues stomping the flowers. Sari grabs one of their legs to stop them, and they try to attack her, thinking she is the witch's minion. But Sari is saved by the woman, who attacks the men and warns them to stay out of her garden. They run away as soon as they see her, and Sari thanks her for saving her, but the woman tells her she only did it to protect her flowers. She asks Sari why she went this far to protect her flowers, and she explains that the Edelweiss flowers represent precious memories, which she thinks the woman is growing to remind herself of something she cares about. We see a flashback of the woman in the field, being given flowers by a younger Ocelot, who promises to reach a high position to prove she isn't a witch, only to be rejected by her. The woman tells Sari that she didn't know the flowers had any meaning, and only grew them because of her old friend. She agrees to hear out Sari's request, but says she won't make any promises. Sari suddenly gets dizzy, so the woman takes her home to take care of her. Sari thanks her and calls her Asya, which was the nickname Ocelot gave her as a kid. Asya gets flustered upon hearing that, and tells Sari to go to sleep. She wakes up late at night to find Asya studying books by the candlelight. She goes over to see what she's reading and is surprised to find out it's a book in beast script. Sari tells her she came to find her because of her ability to understand beast script, and asks her what the book is about. Asya explains it's a diary written by her ancestor who wrote it in beast script so no one would read it. We learn that generations ago, one of Asya's ancestors had a child with a beast despite it being taboo, and it tarnished the reputation of her entire lineage. Sari asks Asya if she has beast blood, but Asya doesn't know and tells her that the ancestor's fate remains a mystery. She gives the diary to Sari, who tells her it might contain information on her beloved king's mother. Asya doesn't understand her feelings for a beast, but agrees to go to the palace to decipher the letter to the human king. Anubis confronts Set for sneaking into the forbidden archive and tells him he's committing treason. Set remains calm and claims that he can enter the archive since he is of royal blood. He then makes Anubis question his loyalties to the king, implying that the king might not be who he thinks he is. Anubis thinks about Set's request to help him expose the king's secret, and he feels conflicted. In the human realm, Ocelot praises Sari for succeeding in her task and reunites with Asya. Sari asks how they know each other, and he reveals that they are from the same village. Asya thinks he left because she was cold to him, but he assures her that he went to the capital to get stronger, so he could come back to protect her. He proudly tells Asya he has grown stronger, but she tells him he still looks the same. Asya begins translating the letter, and Ocelot takes it to the king so they can be granted an audience. Sari seems nervous about meeting the king, and Asya tells her to be more assertive and hold her head high during the audience. She enters the throne room, and the king tells her he will organize a global council with representatives from other nations to discuss the king's proposal in 7 days, and requests her to inform the king that they wish for more time. He asks her about the beast realm, since countless maidens from poor families were sent in the past as sacrifices, which he doesn't agree with. Sari tells him it is an ordinary place where people fret over little things just like humans, and that there are both good and bad people in that world, with a king who wishes for peace between humans and beasts. The king considers this and dismisses her. Ocelot tells Sari he was impressed by her forthright nature, and was surprised to learn that his king thought of the sacrifices that way, since he never showed weakness in public, which Sari thinks is similar to the king. Ocelot talks about how he is hopeful that a future where humans and beasts could live in peace is no longer a dream, thanks to Sari, which she is happy to hear. Meanwhile, Anubis prepares to deliver an anonymous proposal from Set to the king, but he hesitates, scared to learn the truth. He builds up his courage, convincing himself that Set is wrong, and knocks on the king's door. The king tells him to meet him another time unless it's urgent, and Anubis tells him he would prefer to discuss it face to face. We learn that Set told Anubis that if the king denies him entry, he must be trying to hide himself. Anubis requests the king to show himself, which he reluctantly does, revealing himself in his beast form. Anubis is relieved to see him in his beast form, and asks to discuss the negotiations between Joanna and Sari. Sari prepares to leave for home after finishing her duty, and Ocelot suggests she should stay to hear the council's decision, but Asya scolds him for being insensitive. Sari asks Asya about her reason for wanting to study beast script, when she only suffered because of them. She tells her she wanted to learn about herself, but it doesn't matter to her anymore since Ocelot accepts her for who she is. Sari is moved by her words, and departs thinking about how she wishes for Lanhart to feel accepted by others. They reach the beast realm and her arrival is announced by the border guards, but Benyu throws Sari into the king's arms when he sees him waiting by the window. The two embrace, but their moment is short-lived, as Anubis calls for a royal council immediately upon her arrival. Sari informs the council about her mission in the human realm, which they discuss. She feels restless because of the diary, and wants to show the king, but she notices he is acting strange. Anubis asks for approval to publicly announce the peace talks with Joanna and Sari's role in them, which the king approves. Sari is hesitant about it, but Anubis tells her that if the talks go smoothly, he will acknowledge her as the lawful queen-to-be. Amit, Sai, and Klops are shocked to hear this news, but Lanto tells them it will only be possible if Sari passes the last test, which is to successfully create good relations with Joanna. Lanto doubts that Anubis would ever accept her, but Amit is positive that he might have had a change of heart despite his strict demeanor. The others don't agree with her, and Lanto tells them that he feels something suspicious is going on in the palace. Anubis informs the king about the messenger birds returning after delivering messages of the proclamation to the entire realm. He advises the king to convene a council as soon as possible after the proclamation. The king considers all of this, but